Welcome to You Can Do It. I'm Annie, and in this episode, I'm going to be unboxing an Alorair Sentinel HD55. It's Energy Star rated. We've installed a couple of these underneath some crawl spaces, had amazing results in just a day or two of running these. And so I'm going to go ahead and unbox this, show you what's included in the box, go over some stats on it. And then if you want to click the link below in the description, I will be linking the video that shows the entire vapor barrier installation in this crawl space, as well as the completed job on this dehumidifier. So stay tuned. Before we unbox this, I wanted to go over a few things. One, this is the Sentinel HD55. It's Energy Star rated. It's 115 volts, which is a standard 15 amp circuit. We did have a couple questions on one of the last videos we did, and one of them was, can I run this off of an extension cord? And to be honest, I would say no. The reason why is if you're having to run an extension cord, then that means that the distance between this unit and where your closest receptacle is further away than what this unit is allowing. This comes with the standard 6-foot cord attached to it. So if you're having to then add an extension cord between this unit and your closest receptacle in your crawl space, then there's an opportunity for a voltage drop, which then means that this unit is not going to run as efficiently as it should. So for a permanent installation, I would say install a receptacle as close to this unit as you possibly can, and then have this unit go directly from the receptacle right to the unit itself. That way you guarantee the unit's going to run the way it's supposed to. So now let's go ahead and open this up and see exactly what comes as a factory parts and pieces, and what might actually be something you will need to purchase additionally to make your crawl space work. I already cut this box open, so we'll go ahead and just open it up. And of course, it comes with the instructions right there on top for you. There are some additional parts and accessories that you can purchase if you want, such as a remote control that would be mounted somewhere in your house or maybe a garage, to where you can keep an eye on this unit without actually having to go to your crawl space and look at the stats on the side of the unit. Because it is not something that is required, they don't just put it right in here. So it is an accessory, but those instructions are there. And then what I like about how they package this is they put these nice reinforced corners so that upon delivery, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to have a unit that is not dinged or damaged. They also go through the process of putting in a really nice thick foam insulation right there in the box. And I use this, I double this up as something that I can kneel on while I'm underneath the house or the crawl space and installing that unit. So I went and cut the bottom of the box so that I can just go ahead and pull this up and show you what else is in this box. So we again have reinforced corners. The same foam is at the bottom so that the bottom of the unit doesn't get damaged. It says exactly Alorair Sentinel HD55 right there on the side. It is Energy Star rated, and it does come with the cord. Like I mentioned, it's about 6 feet long. And again, you're not going to want to put an extension cord onto this as a permanent install. So make sure that receptacle is close by. And this is what I'm talking about. The remote control looks similar to this. We've got one in our own home so that it just kind of alleviates going underneath the house to see what the unit is doing. But everything that you see here is basically what you see on the remote. So we'll go over that. It does come with the clear hose. And this is where I said there are some additional accessories that are required because of the distance that we are running this unit all the way out through the foundation. This cord right here, or I'm sorry, this hose right here is not going to do it for us. So we did have to buy about 20 feet of the hose. I would say right here you probably have about 6, maybe 8 feet at the most of hose. And then we do have this is for the ducting of the side vent, and I will show you what that looks like. So I'll go ahead and turn this and then talk a little bit more about what this unit does. Okay, so I flipped this around to the back to show you where the air filter is. There's a neat little button right down here that you just go ahead and push, grab a hold of that air filter and pull it out. This air filter can actually either be vacuumed out or you can wash it or rinse it out, but just make sure it's fully dry before you put it right back in. So that's a nice little air filter for this unit. And then of course, this is where the humid air is going to be entering this unit. And then the unit itself is going to separate out that water from the air. The water is then going to exit out this side through that drain tube. And the dry air is going to exit out this side. So I'll go ahead and put that back in and show you kind of what those sides look like. Also, right down here, this is the humidity sensor. So make sure you don't have that thing blocked or up against a wall, because then again, it's not going to adequately monitor the humidity in that crawl space. So that is where the sensor is located. So make sure that there is a clear area around this unit. So now I'll go ahead and turn this. There's some handy little handles right there. This right here is your ducting flange. If you were to duct this into a room, because this is now dry air and you want this to go somewhere, some people have suggested, well, what if I duct this right back into my HVAC unit, which then ducts into the house? And honestly, it can be done. I don't really see a purpose for it, just because once you get that crawl space dry and it maintains that low humidity, it's going to create a lower humidity within that whole home anyway. So I would suggest that this just gets vented right back into the crawl space. So there's really not a need for this. The dry air is coming out of here. And as far as the unit goes, you're going to want to set this typically right around 50 to 55% humidity. And that should be okay for the entire unit. So we'll give this a spin as well. And right here is your readout. So you've got your power button here. Okay, and then you've got your up and down, real user friendly for controlling the humidity. You want to give it a couple minutes once it's turned on so that you can actually see what the humidity is in that crawl space and then adjust accordingly. And like I said, standard's about 50 to 55. This is just letting you know that the power is on. And then we'll go ahead and move around to this side. We'll go back to the front in just a minute, but this is showing you a diagram of how this is wired up. And then down here is the condensate line, or where the water is going to exit this unit after separating the dry air from that water. And again, here's all your specs that you need for this. It runs only at 4.1 amps, and that is why it is Energy Star. I was actually concerned when we got our dehumidifier for underneath our house, and I thought, well, our electricity bill is just going to skyrocket. And to be honest with you, I haven't noticed a single penny difference. So this can be running all the time, and you're not going to see a big difference in your energy bill at the end of the month. So I'll go back to the front and we'll do a final on this before we install it. Okay, and finally, I just wanted to flip this around again just to show you that front side. This is the port for the remote control that would go into your home if you wanted that optional remote control, so you didn't have to go into your crawl space. And then this right here, this is a terminal right there. If you wanted to put in a condensate pump because you're going an extra long distance and you need help pumping that water out of the crawl space, that is where you would power that up. And then finally, we do have a little bit closer view of what the control panel looks like. So finally, we'll just go over the control panel itself. There's your power button to power this up. You've got your up and down arrows. This unit will go between 36% to 90% humidity. And like I mentioned, typical is about 50 to 55. The central control right here This is not applicable for this Sentinel HD55. So even though it's there, it's standard on most units, and it is not something that's necessary for this unit. However, over here, we do have continuous defrost right here. That's a continuous mode. To switch into continuous mode, you simply use the down arrow to set the humidity to 36%. Then that continuous light will illuminate green on the display board to indicate that you've successfully switched it into continuous mode. And then the screen will show CO, meaning continuous mode. When you set to continuous mode, the dehumidifier will run constantly, regardless of that humidity level. To stop the machine, you're just going to go ahead and turn the unit to the off position, and then turn it back to normal operating standards. And then if you want to switch it back to the normal operated standard, you just basically set that set point anywhere above 36% humidity. And then it will go on and off depending on the humidity or relative humidity inside that crawl space. So again, this is used only if you want a continuous dehumidification. And that would be in a situation where maybe it's extremely humid at the very beginning of this install, and so you want to wick out as much moisture as you possibly can. But as a normal operating, you would set this right around 50 to 55. So let's go ahead and get this thing installed and show you how it operates.
All right, so we got the rack installed. So we used some angle iron here and put the corrugated mesh in here. Actually, it's expanded metal. So we get airflow coming through. And I used some 1/2-inch all threaded rod right here. So how it's attached, I got some 2x4s up here that I cut at 30 inches to span the floor joists. And I used this, it's a handy little object here. It's a lag to machine nut, and this will accept 1/2-inch rod. So the 1/2-inch rod, you stick this guy in a socket, which is a 5/8 socket. You just stick it right into the bottom of it and just drive that thing up in there like a normal lag. And then in the bottom, you take the 1/2-inch threaded rod and you just thread it right into the bottom of it. So you just cut it to whatever length you need it. I bought this at Home Depot, this threaded rod. It's, 72 inches. This is actually 3/8. I said it was 1/2 inch. It's 3/8. And it goes into this, it's a lag to machine nut. And you can buy those at Home Depot. So I threaded that up in there, marked it, and then just cut it to the length. I got this rack sitting about in the middle of the crawl space. And then just get yourself some 3/8 nuts and put those on there and just tighten them up. Get your rack nice and level, left to right, front to rear, and it's ready to go. So we're ready to put this dehumidifier on there, plug it in, and get the drain line plumbed.
The dehumidifier is now installed right on that rack system, and Chris went ahead and ran the power cord up the all thread along with some zip ties, and then he ran it right across that floor joist on over to where the receptacle location is, less than 6 feet away, and he zip tied the cord to the floor joist as well so that it does not become a trip hazard. So the next step now is to install that water line and then fire this up.
Okay, so there's the pipe right there. I'm going to take my drill bit with the step bit. I'm going to drill a hole the correct size of the pipe. And here's the pipe that we're going to run in. We're going to run this in. It's 1/2-inch PEX. And then we're going to transition over to the clear tubing that the factory gives us so that we can clearly see the water coming out of the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and drill this hole.
The PEX tubing is now coming up through that French drain and the moisture barrier. We went ahead and sealed it so no moisture from the ground will penetrate up into our crawl space. We taped it at a few locations and we're bringing it around here and going to then attach it to our unit. Make sure that when you're doing this, you have at least a 1/4 inch fall in height for every 1 foot of distance so that that water doesn't get stuck somewhere in the pipe. Chris is now going to install the factory clear tubing right onto that compression fitting on the side of the dehumidifier. This is where the water is going to exit the dehumidifier and out the crawl space. Now that that is on, the next step is to just make the junction between this clear tubing and that PEX tubing that we had already installed. He's cutting that PEX tubing and then he is going to attach that clear tubing. One of the benefits of doing something like this is so that you do have kind of an inspection distance where you can see where that water is, making sure that that water is flowing in the direction it is supposed to be flowing. And so you do want to have that clear tubing versus PEX going all the way up to that unit so that there is an inspection area. He is installing that right onto that PEX tubing, and then he's using a hose clamp to attach both of them together. There is the hose clamp that he's going to go ahead and just slide right over and tighten that down so that the junction is nice and tight. He went ahead and tightened that hose clamp right there where that junction is from the factory clear tubing on down to the PEX. The last and final stage is to go ahead and turn this on, set it to the proper humidity in here, and check just to make sure everything's working before we close this up. We have the unit plugged in but not turned on, and the relative humidity is approximately 60% right now. It would typically be higher than that, but we had an in-home temporary dehumidifier under this house for approximately 2 weeks, just trying to wick up some of the moisture before we started this job. So I'm going to go ahead now and turn it on. It's powered up, and I am going to now press the down arrow to 50. So we're going to run this for a little bit and check the condensate line, make sure that the water is draining properly before we close the crawl space up and call this a completed job. The dehumidifier has been plugged in for about 5 minutes, and as you saw right at the beginning, water's already coming out the hose end and draining on out. So this is doing its job, and in no time at all, this will be at a relative humidity of 50%.
All right, so we've completed the installation of the moisture barrier underneath this house on the crawl space and the dehumidifier in the rack. Turned out really nice. We're really happy with it. So I hope you liked the video. Hope it helps you out so that you can do it yourself. So stay tuned for our next video, and thank you for watching You Can Do It.